And so they suspected that she was helping me because they knew that, they had her wearing a wire, and they started threatening her. They threatened her. They threatened her parents. They were staking out her apartment. They told her to leave town.
Wow.
While the jury started the deliberation, they called me to court and said that Dawn was found dead in her apartment.
Whoa.
By her father. Yeah.
My condolences.
Because our system, it has nothing to do with justice. It has nothing to do with guilt or innocence. It has nothing to do with the law. These federal judges are there to protect prosecutors and preserve convictions. When you say that there's an injustice or something's wrong with my case, they take it as a personal insult that you're attacking the credibility of our most wonderful system. They don't. And so Don Nugent has been critical to these prosecutors to try to, shut me down and not allow a hearing in court. There's never been a hearing in court, but finally, after a decade or almost a decade, a court in Pennsylvania where I was in jail appointed attorneys after the government had so clearly made false statements about evidence. So there was a federal case, there's a state case, and there's this task force, which is a different building. So you almost have like this triangle, okay? And the feds shifted all the evidence to the task force, but they lied about that. Mark Bennett and these federal prosecutors lied and said, we never sent any evidence to the task force. Tony Viola, he's delusional when he's telling you that Dawn Pasela had any access to federal evidence. We gave him everything he was supposed to have before his first trial, even though the second trial was the same task force and the same charges. No, that doesn't really have anything to do. There is no violation of the law. But again, the government's own documents disprove that. We ended up obtaining, I have a private investigator who's been doing this for a decade also, a guy named Bob Frederick, great guy. We got documents that proved that they had sent 18 boxes of records from the U.S. attorney to the task force. Their press releases said that the task force was the central repository for all the evidence in these cases. So basically, once again, we used what? The government's own words and their own documents to destroy their representations in court and prove them to be liars. Well, a judge said, wait a minute, this is crazy. Appointed a lawyer, my case gets shipped to Washington, D.C. Those people take a look at what Mark Bennett and Dan Caceres were doing, get alarmed, take a second look at the case and say, all these representations about evidence are false. And the FBI claims, and this is a doozy, that they were unaware of their own records in the FBI record system for over a decade. They had no idea about forget what they sent to the task force. They're saying that they don't even know about their own records. And if you don't believe me, their filing is on the website. So both the Justice Department and the FBI said they made false statements about evidence, and they weren't even aware of their own records. What in the heck is that?
I gotta ask you this. Wow. I gotta ask you this. You said that they claimed that you defrauded companies like JP Morgan and Citibank. Did they have anything to say about this? JP Morgan and Citibank, did they have any statement to make on this? And if they did, what did they say?
Well, initially they went along with the government and they did what's called light testimony. They said, well, we didn't go through the actual transaction specifics, but we generally don't allow no money down loans, and we don't want any foreclosures, and we lost money. Someone's got to be a victim. So at the first trial, they kind of played along with the government in the most low-key possible way, but somebody had to come in and say we were duped. At the second trial, these same banks came in, but I was armed with the documents. So they said we don't allow no money down loans, and I was able to hold up their underwriting guidelines and say, well, do you know what this is? Yeah, that's our underwriting program. Okay, well, let's go to page 86. Right here, it says that you allow no money down cashback mortgage loans and up to $25,000 cash back. You just told the jurors you don't allow it, but on your own book, it says you allow it. So why don't you just tell the judge and the jury you lied? Oh, I can't say that. But basically, that you have to cross-examine the bank with documents. And Dawn, we called her Document Dawn. She always said, the documents are key. The documents are contemporaneous from when the transaction occurred. The documents don't lie. The FBI can't threaten to indict the document's girlfriend, okay? I mean, you need documents, right? If the bank file said that they allowed no money down loans and told the title company to give Catherine Clover $13,207 back when she bought the house, how are they going to say that I tricked them into doing it when their own bank authorized the no money down loans? So this is sort of the, we had to grind it out count by count by showing, look, you're not a victim. You guys knew everything and knowingly approved it. You could have said no and you offered the loans. So we basically told the jurors at the second trial that this is like saying I tricked Starbucks into selling coffee, or I tricked McDonald's into selling a hamburger. You're offering the loan, you're approving the loan. Why is the realtor supposed to go to jail?
Right.
Okay, but without those documents, you cannot win a trial when the government is basically putting these people on to say, oh, shucks, we were duped. But with the documents, I mean, the jurors after the second trial said there's no scam here. They could have said no, and they willingly and enthusiastically made the loans. So now the banks also told the government that they didn't lose money, but yet they still made me pay restitution on these millions of dollars that they say they didn't lose and I don't have. And just to complicate it one more time, about a year after my trial, all these banks started reaching these $15 billion settlements where the Justice Department lets big companies just pay money to get out of criminal activity. So we have three tiers of justice in America. The police and prosecutors can shoot people, and that's cool. No problem. They're immune. Then we have, the Sackler family or JP Morgan, they just pay to get out of problems. And then jails for for us, okay, for everyone else. And so JP Morgan admitted knowingly making loans and fibbing about it, and they paid these big fines, but the government never made them withdraw their testimony in these mortgage fraud cases. So the bank is, on the same transactions, according to the government, an innocent victim, duped into making loans, entitled to restitution, I got to pay them, and they're a criminal, a perpetrator of fraud, because they knowingly made the loans and sold them on Wall Street to all your colleagues in New York that sliced them into mortgage bonds and all this, and people lost money later. So the government has abused its power by pursuing multiple theories of criminality concerning the same thing. And how is a private person, I'm a real estate sales guy, how is a private person have any chance against the government when they're making up all these outlandish theories, hiding evidence, pursuing different theories at the same time, using perjured testimony, invading in my trial preparation? In America, supposedly, you have a right to go to trial and you have a right to prepare for trial, right? Court is supposed to be, the government brings their best case, the defense brings its best case, and we trust in jurors to decide. But that's not what happens. They get all bitter if you don't plead guilty. They're like appalled. They took it as a personal affront on their manhood that I would have the temerity to say, I want to proceed to trial. And so in Mark Bennett's mind and Dan Caceres' mind, what you do is you commit misconduct. They indicted me a third time. I was already indicted twice in federal court and state court. Then they announced a third indictment so I could get arrested again and get on TV again and have another bond again. So this is an incredible abuse of power when you supposedly have a right to go to prepare for trial, which the government interfered with, and proceed to trial. But the government, this nonsense of playing games with evidence, and it's all been exposed. And yet my first conviction is still not vacated. I've got, all this court drama going on. You would think that someone in the FBI would say, even if it's not misconduct, let's just say it's a mistake. How do you put people in jail when you don't even know about 10,000 documents? I mean, all these cases should be reopened based on what they've said, and it shouldn't be up to me to prove misconduct. It's the materiality of the evidence that was suppressed. These prosecutors put innocent people in jail, and they had the evidence of our innocence the entire time, but didn't feel like following the law. And when they don't feel like doing it, there's no mechanism to force them to do it. And these judges have allowed this nonsense to go on for years and years and years and years. And it's destroying people's lives, but it's destroying the country because the public doesn't believe that the government's doing the right thing.
Can I ask a question, Tony?
Go ahead.
The whistleblower that was working in the prosecutor's office, Dawn Pasela. Okay, she actually approached the prosecutor, Dan Caceres, and said, you have this information, these documents. I can't understand why you're continuing with this case. And it rose to quite a conflict between the two. And shortly after, she was asked to leave the office. So she was fighting for you, and lost her job because of it, because the prosecutor was just not going to give up and not going to stop.
Well, she had lost her life over it, is what ended up happening. And so let's just talk about this. Dawn was brilliant.
Yes.
Absolutely gorgeous. Just a wonderful person. My friends loved her. She started hanging out with us and came to these little happy hours. And everyone she was just a very nice person. And she's very young. I think she was 23 when this wearing a wire nonsense started. She was a rising star in the prosecutor's office, a great student. Had 2 degrees, had at Cleveland State and also criminal justice at Cuyahoga Community College here. Just a brilliant rising star, named to handle all the evidence at this high profile task force. People that were much older wanted that job and they put her in it. So Dawn was brilliant and very successful. She was in the meetings inside the prosecutor's office when the bankers were there. She would be in the meetings taking notes for the prosecutors, and then they'd say, oh, go find this file or go make a copy of this. And so she'd run around and do all that. But she was very upset about that. And she asked the prosecutor, this is after one of her friends in there told her, you can't be wearing a wire, that's illegal. The government asked an undercover officer to wear a wire and record my trial preparation and what we were doing. And he said, no, I can't do it, it's illegal. So they asked Dawn to do it and she was nice and agreed to do it. And then she felt awful that she did it. And so she was having all these doubts and it really crushed her spirit, because here's a good person who's trying to do the right thing and idealistic about justice, and then seeing that they're actually hiding and destroying evidence. I don't think she wanted to help me personally as much as she was outraged by the abuse of power and the hiding of evidence that affected me and all 1,100 people. I mean, the government's theory is just wrong. These cases are wrong. The bank is not a victim of a mortgage fraud scheme. Okay, the banks were doing shady things inside the banks, but realtors and people buying and selling real estate were not involved. We didn't fly to the bank's processing center and help them put the loans together, okay? So anyway, she became greatly alarmed at the misconduct inside, and she confronted Caceres and basically said, this bank just told you that they knowingly signed off on all these loans. Why don't you dismiss the case? And Caceres yelled and screamed and said, you are a junior person here. You can't say stuff like that. I'm making the decisions. You're just a secretary. Go scan evidence and stay out of all this stuff. And she couldn't accept that answer. And they were forging her name on the evidence log. Evidence was disappearing and she was the custodian of the evidence.
They were forging her name?
Wow.
Yes. Her parents have come forward and said that they were forging her name on the evidence log. Evidence and computers disappeared in my case. And she was alarmed that that was going on and that they were getting ready to blame her. So she felt this great weight of misconduct that was going on. She's seeing that people are innocent and wrongfully accused. She's seeing the win at all costs litigation. And she didn't tell me this story till later, because this was before the first trial. One of the keys is Mark Bennett and the U.S. Attorney Dettelbach. These characters had this evidence of our innocence before the first trial. This is not something that came up later that some local official found or something. So anyway, she was very upset about it and basically left the office in tears and was later asked to leave the task force. And then later they wanted her back. And she said, I can't go back. I can't deal with it. And this whole thing crushed her spirit. And then after that, she came forward and said, look, I need to talk to you. And basically, fast forwarding to the end, she basically said, I want to help you. I'm sorry for what's gone on. And I asked her if she thought I was innocent. And she said, yes, I know your case better than you. I'm handling all the evidence in the case. She actually helped the government make the trial exhibits before the first trial. And now she's helping me prepare for the second trial, which I would not have won without Dawn. Anyway, it's an awful story what happened, but she was added to the witness list and was planning on testifying about misconduct. She wanted the second trial to be into two parts, innocence and misconduct. She said, Tony, if you run around the courtroom all day and say the government's committing misconduct, you're going to lose. Nobody cares if you're guilty. I mean, maybe they should, but go blow up a building and the search warrant's wrong. Nobody thinks you should not be in jail, right? So she said, you have to prove your innocence. I'm going to talk about the misconduct because I'm there. I saw it. I have proof. And I'm going to testify about that. And she basically gave me evidence of actual innocence that she said was related to my case and all these task force cases. Remember, the evidence of my innocence. It's not like a DNA case where I didn't rape the lady or something. None of the evidence of my innocence is Tony specific. It affects everybody. And so everyone who was prosecuted by this task force, and none of the defendants got this evidence.
Now, let me ask you this. Was Dawn the one that lost her life?
Yes. What happened was she helped me prepare for court for the second trial, gave me the evidence, and planned on testifying. When the government realized partway through the second trial, Caceres finally figures out, how does this guy have all these records that we say don't exist and that we thought we put in the trash? He's got all these records. And so they suspected that she was helping me because they knew that, they had her wearing a wire, and they started threatening her. They threatened her. They threatened her parents. They were staking out her apartment. They told her to leave town.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, could you imagine if I did this to a government witness? I mean, can you imagine if I sent someone to a government witness and said, hey, you're supposed to testify
and these were the feds that did this?
Yes, FBI agent Jeff Kassouf, Dan Caceres, Mark Bennett, these people knew that she was a grave threat to them because she had personal knowledge of criminal activity inside the U.S. Attorney's Office. Absolutely. She worked for the prosecutors for many years. So they were very nervous that she's going to come in a public forum in court and testify and bring documents. She said she had other documents, which we don't know where those went either. But anyway, they threatened her. She called Judge Gall and said, look, they're threatening me. He said, look, you're coming in to testify. I'm greatly alarmed by what's gone on in this trial. The government has made representations that certain evidence doesn't exist. Tony Viola has it. I've accepted a lot of guilty pleas from other defendants. I'm very alarmed. I want you to come in and testify as to what you know. And Judge Gall ordered her to come in. And the prosecutor said they were going to arrest her if she got anywhere near the court. And and she called me, and the judge allowed me to talk to her. And I said, look, Dawn, forget it. I'll take you off the witness list. I know I won the trial. And she says, no, I have to come in because they know I've helped you. I'll be a whistleblower. If I get in there, I have to testify. They'll hound me for the rest of my life. I've got to get in there. And I said, okay. And then when it was her, she was the last witness. Because remember, she wanted to do innocence and then misconduct. Right. And she was going to do the misconduct. And she'd give me the questions to ask her. We even practiced. She wanted me to ask her open-ended questions. What were your concerns about evidence? She said, if you ask me what time it is, I got to say it's 3:30. If you ask me, what did you think about this? Then I can talk. So she said, I was supposed to ask her these open-ended questions. She said she was coming in. She didn't show up. The judge asked if I knew what she looked like. I said, yes. He said, well, go out in the hallway and see if she's there. She wasn't there. So Judge Gall said, well, we'll do a recess and then I'll reconvene. But if she doesn't show up, we're doing closing statements. And so at 1:30, she didn't come and we just did closing statements. And the next morning, while the jury started the deliberation, they called me to court and said that Dawn was found dead in her apartment. By her father. Yeah.
My condolences.
No investigation of all this wearing a wire and all this evidence nonsense. It's been covered up by the U.S. attorney, by Bennett and Caceres.
This concludes this session with the Hustlers Corner New York City. We just want to say thank you for taking the time to join us today. If you are a person who has been wrongfully convicted of a crime you didn't commit and you're free now, come share your story on the Hustlers Corner New York City Victims of the System series. If you are a person that is self-reformed and active in the community, enacting positive change within the community, come share your story on the Hustlers Corner New York City Legends of the Hood series. If you are a Black-owned business and you want to share your story about your business and about how you built it from the ground up and about your products, come share your story on the Hustlers Corner New York City
Black Business Movement series. If you are a up-and-coming artist, hip-hop, rap artist, performing artist, and you'd like to share your story, come share your story on the Hustlers Corner New York City On the Grind series. If you are a woman who has been through traumatic times and you'd like to share your story of success and triumph, come share your story on the Hustlers Corner New York City Lipstick Story series. And be on the lookout now for our new Rage page, in which we talk about current events that are affecting everyone within and without the community. So again, I just want to say thank you so much. And as always, please do us that big favor, show your love. Like, share, don't forget to leave a comment, and most of all, subscribe. This is Perry L. Duff coming at you live from the Hustlers Corner, New York City. Peace.